Well, here's the hardest part, guys. Yeah, but here's the really hard truth is that it just takes fucking time. And so the problem with this, I've been saying since I came into this space that there's a real reckoning coming between the people who are here to make money and flip and pump these NFTs and try and sell them at the top and then bottom out all these collections. Those people are in direct conflict with the artists and creators that are trying to build the new brands, trying to build the next, SpongeBob or whatever it's going to be. So I keep saying that I think the big watermark is a point where a character that's born of NFT connects in mainstream. And I don't believe that will come in the guise of NFT conversation. In fact, I think that NFT conversation, commodities, finance, all that conversation, the entire culture associated with that, from Gordon Gekko to Wolf of Wall Street, that character is a really undesirable aspiration. And so mainstream, mass pop, they don't like that guy. They're not going to cosplay as the Jersey Shore. And so to get anyone from mainstream to give a fuck about any of this, I don't think you can mention NFT. I don't think you can mention any of these forums or technological platforms. So anybody who's like, we got to onboard people to crypto, it's the only way to pump my NFT bag. I'm like, none of that's important. You're not going to sell, like, the biggest fan of Deadfellas isn't also cosplaying Tyler Durden. Do you know what I'm saying? So like all the Mr. Robot nihilists who are in NFT to watch the world burn, like anarchistically selling a meme culture as promissory notes, that's not gonna ever get the message to mass. That's never gonna get my stepmom to think the tunes are so cute. And that's what you really need. That's what you really need for any of this shit to work. That's why I tried to backdoor. I was like, well, I'll take this premise because I like all these characters. I love this artwork. I like these communities. I'm not trying to tell the story of the apes. I'm not trying to tell the story of the girlies or the cryptodes. I'm trying to tell the story of this bar where it doesn't matter what you are, you can come get a drink if you're not an asshole.
Right.
And that's the real Trojan horse of any of this stuff. My biggest hope with Whitehorse is that it's not an NFT-based show. All of the animated characters on the show are not NFT. A couple are. But the idea is that they are all original animated characters that are a character, a persona, a story that you care about, that you're interested in, that you want to follow. You want to see how these friends become an unlikely family and how anyone that can come to this bar can feel a part of that family. That's the only thing that matters.
I love it. I feel like my mind just got blown right now because we've been saying that maybe in different contexts, with not so much experience and in under our belts like you have. But, we kind of play around with the same concept of, these characters, right? You look at a DGen 2 and they're extremely relatable. You can connect with at least a few in the collection, right?
Yeah, I bought like 8.
See, there you go. So it's like we do feel like from an IP standpoint, from an art standpoint, it is a product that can, reach the masses. It's just a matter of how do we position it? How do we build that brand equity? We're steering away from the concept of a financial instrument versus this is a brand, right? We're developing entertainment IP, apparel, experiences, great partnerships.
I think that's the most successful track that any of these projects can pursue is the brand potential. That's why I liken it to the Smurfs. Even though I've been taking shit this is the problem is the more I talk about any of this, the more I give the naysayers room to say nay, I really just feel the work is the thing that's going to be the proof. The contributions will be the proof of concept. The more we all talk about hypothetically what can happen, how this character, it's all of the information is available, and now even crazier, the tech is available to the average consumer to just make your own stuff. The problem is the idea that there's infinite bandwidth with respect to the audience. The audience is not going to be able to get behind a million new ideas and love them as passionately as they love any one. So I remember Gary V a year ago was talking about 99% of these projects are going to fail. And that's less based on the financial opportunity than the actual bandwidth of the audience to prove this axiom, which is that characters created in an NFT space can be as viable to mass pop as anything created intentionally for that space on its own.
And I think that we've seen that with his project, right? Because like when you look at his art, and this is like by no disrespect to Gary Vee, but when you look at his, like the art really necessarily isn't there for those characters, right? But the fact that he's kind of like almost give like a tangible thing that you can hold on to and latch onto with like merchandise and now these cards that he's came out with and all that kind of stuff, he's bringing like that to the real world.
I've said to him personally, I wish the art for the phase 2 was better personally, and I know it's not mass, but I love his original marker sketches. Like the whole shape of that, the idea that it was hand drawn, it felt infinitely more relatable to me than the very, very polished version of it. And that's kind of unfortunate because you as a creator, imagine the only thing that can cross through is something that looks as good as Pixar, that looks as good as Disney, but what is looks as good. We live in a time where something like Adventure Time or Regular Show can become super popular, where, you know, really weird shit catches with the audience just because it looks brand new. I'll be really interested to see how this continues to evolve. Gary's such a visionary, even by hosting a convention that wasn't a finance-forward convention. Like holding a convention that's fans and enthusiasts and supporters and meetup opportunities. Speaker engagements, sure, but it was all so accessible. You know? Everybody that went to VCon was sort of affirming in real life that people they'd been talking to for over a year on the computer were real, and that we both like this stuff, and oh my God, we feel the same way, and your politics or how you raised your kids wasn't even coming into the equation. You're just like, tunes.
Right.
So Gary's a visionary with respect to that, organizing a place, giving a shape and a tone to the way all this stuff should be grown. Like I was in Comic-Con San Diego, 94, 95, like 500 people there over the course of 4 days, watching the 20 years pass to where Comic-Con is on par with Show West. It's like the biggest international meetup, gathering, grassroots marketing opportunity for all of the biggest brands on the planet. And it birthed the success of all of the Marvel movies. So that as a convention, just by design, has kind of ceased to be something that you can roll up to on Saturday and buy your day pass and wander the floors,
right,
and just sort of check shit out. Like now there's, God, what did they estimate? Like 300,000 people, 500,000 people coming through there from Tuesday to Monday.
Crazy.
It is. It's insane. It's untenable. Like they've had to make the experience itself a little more clinical just so that everybody can feel the same shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you want these lights off or no? Oh. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Well, so you ask, how do you get there? And everybody's talking about the time that it takes or being so early. This is what it means to be early. Like, this is what it means. We're at Comic-Con in 95. So VCon is like...
It's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? You got to think about it with that level of patience. It took so much time. Look at a brand like Daredevil and how many shots at bat Daredevil's had and what it took, not just from the offering itself, but culturally to catch up with the idea that this hero could be this entertainment apparatus. It just has taken all this time.
So time is the key here, right? And but how do you, so in a space like Web3, right? I know, I guess the key is kind of deferring away from the NFT itself and kind of focusing more on the brand, the storyline, the characters. But in a space like Web3 where things move so quickly and the current audience, right? Not the addressable market, but the current audience is so fixated on quick delivery, turnarounds, and, you know, what's next? When is that coming out? How do you combat that in the short term to then eventually be able to have that larger storyline that you can, you know, develop? Because like you said, it takes, you know, Comic-Con 95, right? We're in 2022. So it took years, right?
Well, let's talk about that for a second, though. The audience that you're trying to keep happy, or the pressure to continue to fulfill a commodities deliverable based on your collectible. I just think it's backwards. When Cause creates a collectible, they're unconcerned with anything beyond the initial sellout. And the holders, some may be collecting it because they expect some kind of resale value, but that's not the guarantee. That's not the contract that the artists are making with the audience. And so a little bit of it is just educating the audience themselves. But the biggest thing, like education, making sure that holders really understand what they're buying and not getting caught up in all of their fantasy, hyperbolic expectations of the market or returns on any of these projects, really making them understand what they hold by owning this certificate of authenticity, which guarantees them airdrops, future things that can be added to the collection, their own point of access to a brand that you guys are going to continue to put money into to fortify their first person participation with future exploitations of that brand and their own ability to do something with the piece that they own. But if you really think about that audience, it's like 1 million people.
It is small. It's just
right?
the entire
So the
market
people,
now.
yeah, but what market? You're talking about a crypto market. You're talking about an NFT market. And so if your goal is to maintain the fidelity of your NFT, the things you have to do to boost the marketplace position of that token are almost in direct opposition to what you have to do to grow this brand. And so when you talk about the audience that you're trying to attract, you're not talking about those 1 million people who are trying to onboard into crypto. You're not talking about those 1 million people who are watching the market every day and trying to figure out if the FTX Binance thing is a thing that they got to worry about. That's just not what I'm here for. I'm here for the 8 billion other people that recognize the silhouette of Darth Vader because of the last 35 years of storytelling associated with that character. I'm talking about the 8 billion people that would recognize Batman because of the 50 years of storytelling behind that character. So that's the audience that I care about.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we're on the same page with that, right? But as operators, we do deal with this market on a daily basis. So it's difficult to sometimes take a step back and say, how do we, because we still have to please this market, right? We still
totally.
have to play
I've got 3 NFT projects right now that I get accused on the daily of rugging because I'm not on the Discord every day like some fucking YouTube influencer shilling for this project. And it's absurd. It's actually an absurd expectation and a fundamental misunderstanding of what my obligation is to any of these projects. My obligation to these projects is to boost their awareness and to continue to pay into growing this intellectual property. And people don't seem to understand like the money that it costs to do any of these things. Any one of these NFT that I've released self-financed the release of. Me with my partners, we self-finance the release of this project. So any monies that go into the project are built out of the treasury. If we plan a 6,000 piece mint and only mint out 2,000, that is 4,000 less units with which to build any new stuff. So, minting out a portion gives us way less to provide the community with. And we have to pivot our ideas to do what we believe is the goal, which is saturating the marketplace with this idea so that it's proof. The kind of proof that you don't even need a printed copyright for,
right,
because it's all built into the blockchain metadata. The convergence of all these technologies and creative opportunities and access to audience, people haven't even quite realized just how big that is. Just how big that is as far as independent opportunities to grow brands.
So how do you deal with it, right? Because you're getting accused for rugging projects, and obviously we know that's not the case, right?
I've got over 1 million Twitter followers, and there's how many, like 1 billion people on that platform? So anybody can get in your ear just by tagging you, and I haven't made myself unable to be tagged, and people are assholes. But also anybody that's following me is a person who made the choice to follow me because they wanted my entertainment in their pocket, and they wanted at least the appearance of access to get their ideas in front of me. So, anybody that is calling me names or using that opportunity to attack me, I've spent the last 10 years that Twitter's existed picking and choosing my battles, attempting all different kinds of communication. And I've zeroed in on a daily functionality that seems to work, which is I don't take anything seriously that anybody says to me.
No, I don't think you can.
Well, especially if they're anonymous.
Yeah.
Literally go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
You don't even have the balls to say it to my digital face. We don't really need to talk about it. And then also you can't please all the people all the time. And so I recognize people that bought into any given project that I put out, believing in their own mind, which was never a thing that I promised, that any one of these NFT could be something that they would resell for higher than it costs to mint. Especially because everything that I've minted is like 0.008. So shut up.
Yeah. But did you feel like that's a fundamental issue, a problem with the space though? And how do you solve that? Does it have to be like all communities unite to have this one message, or how do you get past that?
Well, it's helpful. It is helpful if people unite with community messages. And that was, as an early adopter, the thing that I tried to push right away, is that the entire tone of this needs to be collaborative, and not just in a bear, but not just in a bull, but in a bear too. Like, the whole vibe of this community needs to stay positive, or you'll never onboard anybody beyond these 1 million people. Who the fuck wants to come to a place where everyone is that fickle, or everyone's support for a particular art or project or community is dependent on how fat their bags are? That's not fun.
Yep.
If you love Spider-Man, you love Spider-Man even when the floor is below 0. That's kind of the point of brand love. There's either going to have to be some kind of excising, separating these two spaces, or an acceptance that ownership of a token gives you different access, different rewards than loving. Let's say you love Deadfellas and you bought a stuffed animal,
yep,
but you don't own an NFT. That's legal.
Right.
The guy who owns the NFT can't be mad at this person buying a sticker of whatever Deadfellas Betty and Syke have retained for the ongoing fidelity enforcement of the brand itself.
Got it. No, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that, like, with the maturity of the space too, like that, like what you said earlier with time, right? Like, time will kind of fix that, because I think that if you look at, especially like how the media and news has kind of projected Web3 and NFTs, most of those headlines have always been based around like this CryptoPunk sold for millions of dollars, this Bored Ape is sold for millions.
But
I'm
sorry. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I think that a lot of people, at least like the outsiders, they're coming in with that expectation of making money.
Sure. And it's like which outlets are reporting what and who they're reporting it to. Like all of the big auction sale things those go out to financials, right? Those go out to people that are watching financial markets that give a shit about how much this Warhol or how much this Basquiat sold for. That's that. Mainstream is getting completely alienated by all of these conversations, by all of these headlines, because they are pushing the idea that the only value in this space is financial.
Yeah.
So I have people that I've just stopped talking to anybody about any of this. You know what I mean? I see enough memes where people like talking about NFTs, or I've never felt like the front run at this is with NFT is the thing. I really feel the goal here is creating characters and creating a new intellectual property that can have a kind of decentralized ownership that is both being fed in a mainstream market with content, apparel, IRL support, that also exists in this totally decentralized way.
Yeah, we totally agree. And so to that point, right, what do you think it's going to take for that adoption to happen? Is it a player like Warner Brothers?
What do you consider adoption? That's
I guess the mass market, right? Outside of this bubble that we live in, how do we get the general, American consumer, to look at NFTs from a brand perspective versus a financial opportunity? Does it come in the form of IP? And if so, you being in Hollywood for so long, how do you think these executives are looking at this? Are they interested in doing in developing IP from this?
I have executives call me all the time, and the projects that I'm talking to tell me that executives are calling them all the time. How are they looking at it? They're looking at it like Web 1 premises that they can apply Web 2 sales mechanics to.
Okay.
That's how they're looking at it.
Right.
They don't understand how anybody's making money. They are looking at NFT as some kind of exclusively defined noun, and they expect a similarity across any project or any application. What we're really talking about is technology. There is a technology that allows for public minting of an asset, an idea, a token that is a certificate of authenticity that represents something much larger. That's the technology. So anything that gets minted across blockchain is viewable publicly. Anybody can fucking look at it. You can trace money, currency, tokens across millions of permutations and still find where the shit is. That's the technology. How that's applied across all of these other forums, financial, collection, there's going to be a point where the real onboarding is not calling it NFT. Look at something like Snapchat, right? You've got average daily users in the millions using the most advanced connect engine, data point scaling, compression transference, what's it called? AR. You have stuff that took people 90 years to figure out how to do. Teams of technologists, programmers, engineers figuring out how you could get real-time mapping to make your face look like a teddy bear. Those engineers 30 years ago were like, how are we going to get mainstream to mass adopt AR data mapping, compression, high-speed transference scales? You're not. No one's ever even going to learn those fucking adjectives. You integrate this technology into something that creates an automated service. PayPal, Amazon, eBay. That's the mainstream adoption of the concept of NFT. It's not by getting your stepmom or your cousin to use a ledger and even understand what not displaying your nonce means. They don't no one's gonna. They don't give a fuck.
Right.
Yeah.
You're never going to get anybody. And the way that it's been unrolled into pop, man, people hate the letters NFT. So how do you get mainstream adoption? It's by burying the technology in something that's actually useful to mass. How do you get the proof of concept that that creative stuff that's born out of NFT is viable in the marketplace? Sell something to the marketplace in a form that the audience doesn't have to know this was born of NFT to love it. Because I think if they know, they're gonna hate it just on principle.
Yeah, a preconceived notion, right, of what NFTs are being, how they're being positioned to that general market, I think is what turns people away. But like you said, right, building a brand, building the IP. When you look at a DGen tune, if I didn't tell you it was an NFT, you could think it's a character in some sort of, you know,
a cartoon series.
Cartoon, yeah, it's a cartoon series, right?
Well, this is the best part about creativity, guys, and especially intellectual property, is you start putting it out there the way you want it to be seen. So you're not saying like, look at this could be a show. You say, these are the tunes. This is their world. That's what the apes did so well. They go, the thing you know is that all these apes belong to this club. They can all get on this yacht anytime they want. They can hang out at this dock. They can hang out at this bar because they're all degenerates. But they're so rich that they're bored, and now they're trying to figure out what to do. You don't need anything more than that. That is such a sound mission statement that anybody who buys an ape is like, this is what I know. I said the same thing when we made PizzaBot. I go, you can do anything you want with your PizzaBot. The only thing that's true is that PizzaBot Prime built your bot. That's it. Post that, go. Same thing with Globotron, with the B-Bots. You can do whatever you want with your B-Bot, as long as you understand it was manufactured by Globotron. I've been having conversations with the other creators. I'm friends with like Mila and Lisa Sterbikoff, Stoner Cats. And we've talked a lot. They made the gimmicks too. So we talk a lot about this idea that the audience wants to be creators. There's like 8% of holders that are doing anything with their NFT. And it really, it's just been demonstrated that like 89% of people that are, I can't do math, but you understand, like the larger percentages of people that are holding are just like Wen Moon.
Right. Yeah.
They're like, you do the work, pump my bag, and that's bullshit. That's not going. The two worlds are not going to function together. Through this bear market, you're seeing all the people who just care about the money getting washed out of the space. And I hate it. I hate seeing people lose all their money. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It is terrible to watch people expect these kinds of markets to have a consistent yield. It's just not what we're building.
No, I agree. So with that, right, so you want these holders who believe in the long-term vision, the brand building, who aren't here to make a quick dollar, right?
Well, or at least ones that aren't going to try and sell. Because the real inflation of the actual NFT stuff is with the marketplace fidelity of the brand. So you get tunes anywhere in real life. Anywhere in real life that connects. Apparel, especially, is a great place just because stylistically you guys would design stuff that isn't just the thing on a shirt. It's like got some kind of personality that the person who wears it doesn't feel like they're just a poster.
Yeah, I mean, this T-shirt Bader's wearing is actually going to be in a movie in a few weeks.
Yeah, right? Something like that.
We can talk. We can talk about that concept. We don't talk about
the concept. Yeah, we can talk about it for sure. But it's actually really interesting, you know, like seeing what we can use, like how we can take our IP, our own branding, and put it into like mainstream media and inject like the IP in these different avenues that might not have been traditionally, you know, something that somebody would expect could be a part of building a Web3 brand.
If you're willing to have the patience and just like do it over time, like none of the grassroots marketing at Comic-Con happened overnight. People came to San Diego because they were so excited that Hasbro had absorbed Kenner and was re-releasing Star Wars figures for the first time in 20 plus years. So like the fandom of Star Wars was curated over decades,
Right.
and it promoted and inspired people to come forward. So if you've got the patience to just like stunt your characters or put your ideas in places to demonstrate that over years they've just always existed, that's your strongest access point. Man, with the ape, we got to prove a lot of precedent-setting copyright case theory. So my ape got stolen through a phishing, which allowed me to publicly highlight these vulnerabilities in the space. And the reassurance that I get that it was worth the trouble is that platforms like OpenSea have completely changed what their signature interface is. So you get like a big red warning. Hey, you're allowing access to transfer all of your tunes. Are you dumb, or do you mean to do this? Right?
Yeah. So real quick, how did that happen? Like, how did someone get you to
Phishing?
Did you click a link? Were you giving?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And I'm like cautious. I have multiple ledgers, siloed accounts. I was doing the airdrop look back to be able to mint my fucking Gutter Cats clones. I know. I still haven't minted them. I'm sure I will. But I've got all these vials, and I know I'm not going to sell it, so what's the point? So here's the thing. When the ape got stolen, I had to really calculate what the potential losses were. And I realized that there is a lack of clarity in the Yuga contract that stipulates what the term of your potential to exploit the licenses against your token is. But the understanding against all stable marketplaces is it would at least be the term of holding. So within the time that you held this token, you have the opportunity to create any other derivative exploitation of it. I had spent all the time that I held it developing a show, creating a name, backstory, full body design, a dozen different provable data points beyond the initial cameo. And so at that point, I consulted a couple of intellectual property case lawyers, and I said, hey, just a question. My theory is that I'm not in any trouble unless the person who currently holds this sues me for, injunction against the use of the thing that they currently hold. If they sued me, I'll be able to prove in court that A, there's a flaw in the Yuga contract, or at least that it deserves clarity, and also prove that not only had I followed the letter of the law, but that in the time that I had developed it, I'd pushed the name Fred Simeon and the White Horse Tavern into pop culture so soundly that it had succeeded the marketplace awareness of Bored Ape 8398. And so at that point, I could countersue and create an injunction against this person, the new holder, for ever being able to use it in a way for fear of marketplace confusion against this clearly established copyright. Follow to the letter of the law. So, I was really upset when I got fished, and I felt so dumb. But once I knew I had all of that on my side, I went public, and I was like, well, let's talk about the community. And I know for the 1 million+ people that follow me, 99% of them are just going to be like, you fucking idiot, you rich dick, fuck you. Oh, I lost my ape. Like, so many people, I was excited by how many people it inspired. But every one of those articles, every one of those shamings, they all included the name Fred Simeon and the White Horse Tavern. And I was like, well, thank you, public, for proving my point. And, the 1% of people that are actually into all this shit that weren't trying to scam me again rallied around. And I felt exactly what I had hoped, which was the support of these communities, the support of all of these people that are here this early with this kind of concept, and just as determined as I am to make stuff, to meet each other, to build something, whether it's just a community or not, to do something. I like that. So yeah, I've got to suffer the slings and arrows. I've been in this business 40 fucking years, man. They'll come at you from every angle.
So did you get that? You got the ape back though, right?
I did. Well, here's the best part. I wonder how much of this I can talk about. The LA County Sheriff's Cyber Crime Division took on the case, and also I made first person contact with the person who bought it. We're like buddies now. You know what I mean? I followed this guy's bag too. I was like, oh, look at this guy's wallet. Oh, the fuck, we'd be best friends. I was like, man, we got the same punk. What? This guy's been into apes since the beginning. He's got a whole bunch of other side deeds. I'm like, I'm gonna contact this guy. And I was like, man, hit me up. And he did.
Oh, there you go.
I know we're on WhatsApp. We chat all the time. It is. It's really fun. And I'm not trying to dox the guy. I was actually mad that anybody tried to dox him. He didn't want to try to get famous. And this was the most trafficked article written about me in a while. So
how does that look of you even getting that back? I don't know if you can touch on that, but like with that being stolen, you contact this guy.
Yeah.
The cyber division.
Well, a couple different angles at the same time. Like I made direct contact with the guy because it was a couple different ways. I had a forensic accounting attorney help me trace everything and actually unmask the holder so that I could make a direct contact with him. And because I had went out on Twitter and I had other sleuths, and then somebody who was like, hey, I actually know this guy. This is the DM. So then we got together and he was like, I got contacted by BuzzFeed and I don't want to, whatever the fuck, man. I ain't even trying to. I was like, hey man. So I asked him like, well, how'd you get into NFT? Like, what did you even like about the apes, this and that? And we just chatted about why we like this stuff, why we invested in it, what we thought was cool about it. He told me he couldn't even believe, because when all my stuff got stolen and resold, it was like 4 different platforms it sold on, and the ape went on OpenSea. And it's a 1 of 4 Halo Bone Tee, and it was just above floor. So this guy was like, holy shit, I've always wanted a Halo. Cannot believe this. Somebody must be in trouble because ETH was low, all of that. Anyway, so I paid him what he paid for it, which felt fair to us both. And I've still got other opportunities to recoup that with any of the criminal cases that are going on.
Well, hopefully you're able to recoup it.
But that guy wasn't the thief. That guy was just he's just a buyer who was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't flagged, so he had no idea when he bought it probably that had happened.
No, because it all happened really fast. Yeah. And me, like an idiot, I didn't realize I'd been fished for like 5 days.
Because I just don't. How it is, right?
Well, I've got like over 100 NFT and I don't want to inventory them. And the way the scam happened, the alerts that went off and how quick I pulled my ledge, I just didn't. Like I saw the gas fee, which was a bunch of gas, but I didn't think I'd lost any. Fuck. So dumb. Well, I've been assured that I'm not dumb, but it still feels dumb.
It happens, right? But like you said, it's a flaw in the system that now has been corrected, from my understanding.
At least improved.
Yeah.
There's so many flaws with the system because of, and it's the same as anything. The technology wasn't built for this purpose. It wasn't built to do this, and it kind of needs to be retrofit to be able to allow for the traffic, the volume, all of the most basic of protections that don't create more total observation oversight. Like I do believe in the value of anonymous banking potential. And I absolutely believe that the government, whichever government you live under, shouldn't be able to track all your purchases or your spending across all of your accounts. I just don't think that that's good.
Yeah, no, I think.
So the principle of decentralized banking, of crypto, of NFT, of any of these certificates of authenticity, even if what they represent is like gold or any other tradable commodity, I believe in that.
Yeah. Now we're going to see a huge shift. Again, I always tell people, like, when you look at like NFTs, how they are today, I think it's just that the easiest way to get people to understand the technology. And then down the road, we're going to see the applications be tied into so many different things. I mean, you'll see it, your, college degree, your high school diploma, your driver's license. You never know. These could all be non-transferable NFTs that they're on the blockchain,
But they'll never be described as that.
No,
like
they
when
won't.
you're signing up at the DMV and you're
like,
getting
get
both
your
a
NFT.
hard
Acronym.
copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, here's your Phygital. And you're I just don't think, Phygital's as bad as Streamium. That was what all the execs were pushing 3 years ago.
On
The
LinkedIn.
Toys R Us, something like that.
Toys R Us was one, but there was another like entertainment brand.
Yeah, there was an actual...
It wasn't Warner. It was one of those though. We're like Phygital
Yeah.
Experience. I'm like, oh, man.
they're all just trying to like access the pop. They're trying to use the buzzwords that they think are going to attract. Like I went to Horror Nights and they were like, get your NFT.
No way.
Yeah, there's like a QR you can get it
or
for
something
it.
like that.
And I look at there's thousands of people at Horror Nights.
Yeah,
And none of them are scanning this shit.
See, this is what I don't understand though,
that's
right?
an ultra rare NFT right there.
These entities.
Well, that is the thing, right? If you care about that, like if you care about the actual, because I do, there's a part of me that loves just a little bit of the mischief about the art of it, the fact that it is undeniably art. When NFTs started getting sold at Sotheby's, as soon as it moves into the art and collectible space, then it's 100% my language, because I don't just love art, I love the very concept of art. And one of my favorite artistic provocateurs is Andy Warhol. Just because of the way Warhol not only identified the most massive prevalent trends in pop, he created the concept that commercial ideas are the modern art of the day. That the Campbell's soup can conjures as much of an emotional reaction as Rembrandt. That's an amazing observation. And it gave a credibility to all of pop art. It gave a respectability to the artists that are making things that aren't traditionally revered as artistic types. But if you can love Picasso or Van Gogh or any of these other impressionistic painters, then you can love, Jen Stark. You can love Brent Easterbrook. You know what I'm saying? And creating a language as early as the 60s for all of these artists today to run, He's my favorite. But then you also get provocateurs like Andy Kaufman, who sort of test the boundaries of what is the goal of the performer, right? And Kaufman was the first person to say, getting a theater of people to passionately boo at you is equally satisfying to getting a room full of people to laugh at your jokes. You have created with equanimity an extremity of emotional response in the audience that both are worth pursuing. So, I love all that shit.
Yeah, no.
And as soon as NFT becomes about art and collectibles, now you've really got my attention. Because here's the way we actually do things. I heard a million years ago, I'm not a million years old. I heard very early in my career, how do you change the world? How does the world change? Somebody tells someone else something. That's it.
Simply
It's
put.
as simple as that.
It
yeah.
is as simple as that. You tell somebody something like, hey, it's totally your choice to be an asshole or not. Then they're like, it's my choice? When they catch themselves being an asshole, they're like, I'm choosing this. Wait a minute. I could be nice instead. They would never have thought that.
Right.
It's why I love movies. It's why I love TV. It's why I love music. It gives people the most simple of lessons, the most simple of mantras, the most basic of ideas that help make them better, that help inspire some new point of creation.
That's a wild thought. Just a simple word to somebody.
Yeah.
Is all
Think
it
about
takes.
anything that changed you. Where'd it come from? You were just like, huh,
A
never thought
random
about that.
person, you know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So at the institutional level, right? Like we're seeing a lot of these larger entities enter the space completely the wrong way. Like, you know, they're just, you know, butchering
don't you?
it, right?
Oh, you said you were born in 90?
I was born in 90, yeah.
So you're not going to remember this, but I remember when internet went from dial-up, before it was even broadband, and it was still dial-up. All of these major companies, whether it's your Target or the LAUSD, they realized they needed a website. And they were like, fuck, I've got to buy my URL from somebody that squatted it. Like, all of these concepts were first introduced. The idea of like, well, how are they going to know it's me? I've got to get a website. Like, it was important for individuals. I had to own my domain name lest someone else have sethgreen.com and put up a bunch of like animal murder or something awful.
I remember I bought my own domain name like really, really long ago. Like I was a kid and I was like, how do I get this?
So let's talk about that. The concept of internet adoption has taken 30 years, right? So the concept of mass adoption of NFT, it's only going to be built into substacks of other technology that people are automatically using. Getting everybody to start using email took 30 years, right? Getting people comfortable with the idea of going to digital spaces instead of receiving their own newspaper or listening to the radio. That took 30 years.
But do you think
for one to like wholly surmount the other?
The level of access to information is different though, right? Like back in the day, it took 30 years because maybe there wasn't resources or people who could.
We're in an exponential speed up of all of these things being adopted. I'm only suggesting that none of them are going to be adopted in the way that you as originators in the space are anticipating.
Got it. But here's I guess my question. It's maybe it's internal, theoretical, whatever. With the level of access and people like yourself, who you are in entertainment, I mean, I'm sure these companies could reach you for some advice, guidance, whatnot. Why are they not seeking out people who are in the space versus going out there and, you know, completely butchering it from the get-go?
A couple of reasons. You're talking about the same people that buy a book because they think it'll translate well into a movie or TV series and then eliminate everything that attracted the audience to the book in an effort to make what they think makes a good movie or show. The success of Marvel has been consistent service to their characters and stories, rather than trying to translate this character idea into a blockbuster movie. That's why Warner Brothers has continued to make mistakes with respect to DC properties, because they have yet to have a singular unified vision for the brand itself. They're like, let's just make each one of these movies the biggest movie on the planet, without understanding why audiences go to see that kind of movie. So the reason they're not calling me is I'm always a bit of an outsider. No matter how successful I become, no matter how welcomed into any of these spaces I am, as far as making shit, I've always taken a position of, well, let's just make it ourselves. It seems like there's a lot of middlemen, a lot of gatekeepers, a lot of unnecessary time wasted, people trying to prove that they deserve some access to whatever is made on the back of this idea. And I usually say, I don't need you. And so, you know, why would they call me? Yeah, they're like, how do we make money? Their goal is the same. It is not to propagate culture-changing intellectual property.
Right.
Their goal is to make money. It's not to spread these ideas. Like, I had enough of those conversations over the last 40 years with executives or financiers, talking to them about my passion for the story, or why I know this character is really going to inspire this kid to believe that they should just keep fucking getting up. And they're like, cool. How much do we sell it for? And so I finally had to realize, like going to a congressman to lobby about rights for people when they're getting paid by lobbyists fighting against those rights. doesn't matter what I say to them, I'm not filling their pocket as much as this bad idea.
Yeah.
So it comes down to the money, I guess.
Yeah, it's whoever has the bigger check.
Yeah.
You know, that's really, and it's crazy to see, especially in this space now that we're in, where everything is about the community, the creators, the artists, all these things. We've seen some pretty big names try to jump in.
Yeah.
And it completely rips away the authenticity of the space, you know, what it's built on top of, you know, the foundation.
I hear you from that perspective, but again, it's all that's done is pollute the audience's acceptance potential to the letters NFT.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the audience is no less accessible via a savvy brand that is telling a story that gives people something to connect to, that makes them want to wear this idea.
But see, back to the money concept, then you see Yuga Labs raising $450 at a $4 billion seed round. Then you see Doodles raising 54 at 700 and something, right?
Yeah, the money's there.
The money's there. I mean,
the money's there.
The executives should be like, okay, how do we actually make it work? But then if you look at how Yuga made it work, how Doodles made it work, how these other larger projects made it work, it starts with storytelling and culture.
Yeah.
So why don't they? Where's the disconnect?
That's why Yuga hasn't gone to Fox or Sony or DreamWorks or any of these other people to make a Bored Apes. They're just doing their own shit.
Well, they can. Yeah, they can afford it now for sure. Right.
I mean, the thing is also it
isn't about it. It just isn't about the money. You know, if your goal is to make a ton of money, there's very specific routes to that.
Yeah.
If your goal is to build a huge brand, here's the best way I can explain it. What's the biggest project in this space? Apes, right? Apes or punks, right? 1 million people know that. Literally nobody else gives a shit. You're not going to win over mass on the same ideals that have attracted the fan base to the punks or to the apes. You're only going to get this into mass pop at a different angle. And all of the people who are here early with NFT or crypto are trying to get into an I told you so position against the rest of the world that they're trying to onboard, and it's fucking stupid.
I think that we talked a little bit about this yesterday, right? And to kind of go back on the conversation we were having about IP rights and people actually using them, is that I think that the apes holders really do use that to their advantage, right? Like we see murals of these things painted all over the world now. People are slapping them on restaurants, on beverage and alcohol brands and all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's the not slapping that I think is actually viable. Like that Bored and Hungry restaurant where they created an actual good brand of food, like an eatery where you're like, this is a fucking great burger. Also, it's popularized by these apes.
Yeah.
But the people who are eating that burger post I don't know how many apes holders live, how many mutant holders live in California? How many of them care enough to drive to wherever this place is? So that place has to survive on its own merits at some point. And the expectation that our passionate enthusiasm for this project at a root is going to be the thing that makes it get talked about on The View, it's absurd. It's not the way. It's not. That's why I keep saying, what's your goal? What's the goal? Because if your goal is to make money, there's a very specific route about that. If your goal is to continue to reassure your holders that the financial security of their collectible is stable, that's a very different route. If your goal is to spread these characters into mass pop, there's only one way to do it. And that is make your fans love it and feel like they see themselves in it so that they will tell someone else something.
Do you feel like those two other things are subsequent results of the latter, right? Because if you're able to do that, then money comes and security comes, right?
Yeah. If you go on Jimmy Fallon talking about Whitehorse and they're like, so a couple of these characters are NFT projects that other people can buy into. What does that mean? I go, well, it just means that they're part of that collective. And the provenance and value of this collection is demonstrated by my user's ability to turn it into other things. So anybody that wants to buy into the collection has the same opportunity. Or if they just want to feel associated with this character that's on Whitehorse, they can buy, girlies that wear the same cardigan or girlies that are in the same zombie squad.
Right.
I think it backfeeds. I think that the growth of Deadfellas, like their collabs with Wranglers, their manufacturing of soft goods, all of that feeds the value of the NFT itself. You just can't ever expect to woo an audience that's going to support this idea on the promise of the NFT being worth something. They're counterintuitive. Those two ideas are never going to function together.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, right? We see a lot of people in the space that jump in and they're just dead focused on that floor price, right? As a creator of a project or as a holder of a project. But at the beginning, we're looking at it, we see floor price movement and we're trying to figure out what can we do to deliver value and make sure that all this kind of stuff, it stays valuable. But we realize like that's just chasing our tail. Like, the goal is not to, if we're just focused on that floor price all day, it's just, we're not going to be able to build what we really want to build and create a long-term brand that's going to live in the space and like move into different, spaces as a whole. If we're just focused on what can we do to pump the floor price temporarily, and it never lasts either, right? Like if you're going to pump the floor price, it's going to be like 2-3 weeks and then it's back down, probably lower than
I'll take it even further than that with this project, the Pizza Bot project. So we're attempting to create IRL experiences for holders and also give people the opportunity to parallel intellectual property that's being currently created. So I'm writing a movie called Pizza Quest about the secret underground Willy Wonka style octathlon of pizza delivery that has gone on for as long as human history. One of the characters that competes in this competition is PizzaBot Prime, who is the owner and operator of PizzaBot Prime's Pizza Party Production Palace. One thing that PizzaBot Prime has done is attempt to recreate the circumstance that made him self-aware. And he has created hundreds of bots in his image that do everything from farm the things necessary for pizza, construct, cook, and deliver the pizzas. That's all you need to know. So we sold this collection and we're continuing to do things, but we're like, even stuff that we hypothesized as a roadmap, we started really having to estimate the value of. So one of our big plans was to create a sandbox asset of your pizza bot exclusive to you that you could use in any 8-bit forum, like that's transferable into Minecraft or any of the other things. And we quickly realized that of the 2,000 holders, there's maybe like 1% of them that is going to play with this asset in any of these spaces. So then it becomes a question of, well, fuck, is that really the best spend? Or should we be putting money towards fulfilling other goals, right? Like what's actually going to help boost the value of this? What's going to help propagate this intellectual property into culture? Because it's not making an 8-bit asset that only 35 people are using.
Right.
Yeah.
So it really becomes a question of the expected roadmap of any NFT project is based on, I think, outdated concepts. Like this space has moved so fast that all of the basic things that people would promise on a roadmap are worthless to the current crop of holders.
Right.
So it's like shifting your perspective in real time, which is what I've tried to do with the 3 projects that I've got going on. I've got the thing with Steve Aoki. We're making content around that. The premise is still the same. Anybody who holds any one of these can do literally anything they want with it. We're looking into creating physical items or any kind of anything that supports it while we're making a show. That's what we're doing with PizzaBot. Matt Medney and I from Heavy Metal are writing a series of short stories that are all about this universe. So they'll all be kind of prequels or other situations that have happened along the storyline that are relative to Pizza Quest, but not something you'll see. It may be references, like you'll see a character or an idea in the movie, but it's a way for us to fill out what that IP is, what that storyline is. That's the better spend of that money than giving people, this t-shirt or that, right? It's how do we get this in front of more eyes? How do we get more people to love this idea? How do we grow the community that supports this concept?
I do think, to your point, a lot of these roadmaps are outdated. They're very copy and paste. A lot of the projects are using the same thing, the same verbiage as somebody else. And one thing that I actually had a discussion with somebody maybe a couple of weeks ago was that a lot of these projects, the main utility of it, they're solely focused around the localization of where they're located. So if you're LA based and all of these things that you're giving your holders is LA based, what's the reason for someone in Canada or overseas to even buy it?
Yeah. We've gone after, with PizzaBot specifically, we've been trying to go after local places to put on promotions for anybody that can legitimately demonstrate that they're a holder. So during NYC NFT and during New York Comic Con, we teamed up with one of my favorite pizza spots, Made in New York Pizza, which is blocks away from Javits, to the point that anybody could come there and get a free slice. So, but beyond doing those localized things, the real opportunities for people, they're limited. We want to, especially with PizzaBot, team up with local places. We teamed up with the Pizza DAO, and we're trying to organize.
I've seen that Pizza DAO.
Yeah, we're trying to organize the nation's largest pizza party. What we really want to do is set the Guinness record for having people show up at places and be on live feeds and get millions of people having a pizza party.
That's awesome.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That's so cool.
Honestly, it'd be fun. So you do what you can to try and spread the message or get good vibes associated with your project, but you're also limited by how much the project makes to do what you can. Bbots, we're trying to explore what we can give to holders and how we can spread it without more money. We've got a very limited amount that we can spend based on the treasury. Our treasury is we haven't recouped anything. It's all 100% into fuck. How can we empower other artists to make content? How can we show people how to play with this? So the thing that we're doing, we're designing a tabletop RPG. So a very simple 6-sided dice game that's one page that a clever GM can tell an awesome story. I don't know if you guys am I speaking a different language? I love
No, you're good.
D&D, all the tabletop, full set of dice, all that shit. So we want to make something that you don't have to own a Bbot to play, but you can use the collection as a resource for character selection. So you can play any character in the collection, whether you own it or not, and you'll use those stats to measure. But it's 2 game mechanics. It's very, very simple, and it's a lot of fucking fun. So we were playtesting that over the weekend, and when we've got it in shape, which will hopefully not be much longer than a month, we'll release that for free and publicize the shit out of it. Our goal is to get our whole community to play it, but also to target people that do tabletop RPG all the time.
Right.
I looked at the way that Critical Role has had success with playing tabletop stuff, creating a Twitch out of that, recording the games, and then creating a fictionalized accounting of exactly that adventure using those characters as the main characters. It's a really interesting premise. I've seen the same thing with podcasts, right? People make a podcast. It's old-fashioned radio, guys. Podcasting is old-timey radio. I can't believe that's the best conversation I'm having with all these streaming executives who are so now there's an ad-sponsored model where for free you can watch all of this streaming content and it's supported by the advertisers. And I'm wow, 80 years later, you guys invented television.
Right.
Yeah, literally.
But just that idea of putting stuff that the holders can use, that other people can have access to, we'll film ourselves playing the RPG. We'll make that content that people can watch for free, whether you're a holder or not. And our hope is that these are the ways that you get people into the tone, into the vibe. Like Bebots is one of my favorite projects. The art is so fucking cool, and the whole story of it is really ripe. It's just ripe. And if anybody goes to globatron.com, they can watch the trailer. You can buy a bot, or you can just join us and be a part of the story as it grows.
I love it. You have a lot of stuff going on. A lot of exciting things.
I know, right?
Dude.
You're a busy guy.
Guys, this is just the Web3 shit.
How's are you still working on the White Horse Tavern? And how's kind of that going?
I love this show. We want to make the goal right now is to make 12 half hours of it. And that's the biggest thing is the opportunities are so different than they were even at the beginning of the year to get that privately financed, to not have to spend the next year or 3 in development in one of these places while they try to understand what the Web3 apparatus is, point of access is to mainstream. We're already there. We have the show. We're going to make this show, put it on some airwaves.
Where do you plan on launching it?
Well, I kind of don't know. To tell you the truth, we'll see. We'll see who's still around at the beginning of the year.
Good point.
Yeah, we're trying to, we've been talking about like personally doing like, an animated series, something that tells the story of these characters, right? Brings them to life. Like right now we see people that are involved in the project, they see themselves in the character.
Do you see it as a world of cats? Like, that's the real question?
Yeah, Toontown. That's it's like The Simpsons, but they're all cats, citizens. They're all citizens of this town, right? And so there'll be different storylines, different.
So there, you're talking about a really specific thing. You're talking about a series of characters that all live in a neighborhood that have some central town square, whether it's families or individuals. Like that's your goal. Your goal. I mean, really, it's just either team up with a writer, write like a show Bible, come up with your characters.
Yeah.
Or you can work with holders. I feel like the strongest play for any NFT project that's publicly held is to separate prototype characters that can exist in the show as your main function, right? And then you can include holders' characters in it to any way you want to.
Right.
But any place that you're gonna want to distribute it is going to get real bogged down on who owns what copyright to what character and what their liability is. I can't tell you how much in the quickening of all these companies, the business affairs departments and the legal departments have gotten gun shy about making any kinds of choices or decisions.
Yeah.
And I've been in the craziest of situations with business affairs, trying to negotiate a talent contract to get an actress to appear in a thing. And they got held up on the language included in the rights of publicity. So typically there's like a standard obligatory days of press or press outlets. And what the actress requested was mutual approval over the outlets that they were guaranteeing, which means that, if this actress got assaulted by a particular journalist or was made uncomfortable or that person talks shit about her on Twitter, that she doesn't have to go face them down for a press opportunity about this project. And Fox was like, we just can't do it. We just can't do it because it would change the precedent. And the precedent of these contracts is that everyone signs for these obligations. And I was like, well, it's the difference between this actress doing it or not. It's actually, you're making the smallest of amendment, which says that you both mutually agree on the thing. And they're like, we can't change the language of this contract. So that's the level of dogmatic stupidity that you're talking about when you say, how do we get the attention of these gatekeepers?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the gatekeepers are ceasing to have value. The runway between the artist and the audience has abbreviated so much that Justin Bieber sold platinum off of YouTube.
Yeah, that's actually what we're talking about, right? Like, personally, we like to have the ability to create these things more freely than having all this, red tape and gatekeeping. And
it's all implied, guys. It's all implied. None of it actually exists anymore.
Yeah.
It's all like you're like, I want to create a show. I don't know how to do that. I must need a network or a studio. And I can tell you, they don't know how to make a show or a movie either. They just know how to hire people that do.
That's a good way to look at it. I think for us, it's really about the distribution more than anything, because I know we can work with writers and put together different things, but you're talking about the mass market. How do we best reach them? It's probably through one of these networks, right? Because they have a massive.
It just depends on the
base.
launch you want. When you're talking about building a brand, yes, the biggest swing is to premiere on a Fox Thursday or Sunday lineup. If you're talking about an animated show that you want it to have potential, putting it in front of millions of people like Bob's Burgers is absolutely the preference. But if you look at something like Adventure Time, which was born on Cartoon Network, or you look at something like Robot Chicken that was born on Adult Swim, or even something like Family Guy, which a lot of people don't remember.
I love Family Guy.
So Family Guy was on Fox's broadcast for less than a year. They produced 22 episodes, 13 of which aired in a summer dump, and the other 9 didn't exist until they released it on DVD. In 2004, Mike Lazo, who was the head of the Adult Swim, a punishment block of programming between 11:30 and 6 a.m. on Sunday night. You don't understand the concept of ad-based television, but 11:30 to 6 a.m. on a Sunday night is not a desirable block of programming.
I remember
that intends to solicit more than 600,000 viewers. Lazo bought the episodes of Family Guy for second run and put them on Adult Swim, and they just started racking up millions of views. So much so that Fox was like, maybe we put this on DVD and experiment with that putting shows on DVD thing. And the first DVD sold 1 million copies in a week. They were like, holy shit, we better put out that back 9 on a second DVD, new collection. And they did. And it sold 1 million copies in a week. So much so that they were like, Jesus Christ, how did we let Seth MacFarlane go? Let's make a big deal with him. He'll make new Family Guy, make American Dad, and like 3 other shows. That's what you're talking about. So Family Guy didn't become popular on Fox. Once it was so popular, it was undeniable by all of these gatekeepers. Then they had to pay through the nose to put it back on the air.
So like Adult Swim and some of the other ones you mentioned, is that from like a
still viable?
Still viable?
Not really, because of this quickening, right? So Discovery bought Warner Brothers, which owns this, which gets down to Cartoon, which gets down to Adult Swim. So from a very fundamental POV, hundreds of thousands of people fired, laid off out of all of those companies. These tiny boutique subsidiaries, which before had an autonomous operation, are now folded into this larger corporate apparatus, which doesn't even understand how this got popular in the first place. So the last thing that they're committed to is feeding it for a new generation.
God.
They're effectively drying up all of the nutrition for any of these subsects.
So what do you think about the approach, though, of like, I guess if you're not going to like a national broadcast side of things, because you're seeing like, people are really consuming media in like so many different fashions now. Like a lot of these kids aren't sitting down to watch TV anymore. Like they're just watching YouTube videos on their phone or Twitch or anything like that. So what do you think that there's a possibility there of like launching something like that through platforms like that to be successful? Because like you see all these influencers that get insane amount of like subscribers and views on these videos, but I don't think we've really seen somebody go the route of like making like an actual full production like animated series.
Yeah. Yes, I think there's an opportunity. But again, it depends what you're aiming for. I've been watching executives for the last 20 years try and figure out a direct translation between audiences' free consumption of content in their pocket reconciled with driving an audience to a space to pay for additional content by that person. They misinterpret the views as a celebrity that encourages an audience to spend something. or to go somewhere. The whole point of a lot of these exchanges is that they're free and easy. I see a lot of influencers become responsible to what they perceive as an addiction problem with their followers, where they've got to generate content on the daily lest they experience the fickle nature of their fans at all. I do think it's possible to utilize that bandwidth to take those millions of views and introduce new ideas. There was a show called Tracy Ullman in the 80s, which was a sketch variety show that the comedian Tracy Ullman created. And one of the things that she included was a 3-minute animated segment from Matt Groening, who had before that created a newspaper strip called Life in Hell. This concept was The Simpsons. They were crudely drawn, inexpensively animated 3-minute shorts that were popularized inside of this already popular concept. I think that's possible. You see that happen all the time. Pee-wee's Playhouse had a bunch of different things from Penny to the Dinosaur Family that could have become their own show if they'd gotten that kind of support. But there isn't any truth to the idea that just because you put it here, people will pay for it. Or just because it's on TV, people will watch it. There is no truth to that. Just because it's an NFT, people are going to buy it. No, none of that's true.
No, solid point. I guess
Yeah,
gives us a lot to
honestly.
think about now,
Yeah.
for sure.
No, it does. That's like the whole thing, right? You can't force people to fall in love with something that you care about, right? That you love. And we got to show that story. We got to build that story. We got to give the personality and really jump into the culture, super deep to create something that's going to last 20, 30 years.
But there's the other side of it where like, if you guys are apparel leaning, you can look at a brand like Hello Kitty, which has no agreed upon mythology, no discernible linear content, and yet it has been a global powerhouse brand for 30 years. Why? Right? So it's your goal. If Sanrio was like, fuck, the only way anybody's going to buy a shirt with Hello Kitty on it or buy these school supplies is if we create a TV show where Hello Kitty and Karopi are like best friends and they're all buying school supplies. Like, I just don't think there's. I really believe that your goal will dictate your path.
Yeah.
And it's just erroneous to imagine that all of them can converge at the onset. Marvel didn't try to make an Avengers movie first. They were like, maybe people like Iron Man. And if they do, maybe we can spend enough to make a Thor movie. You know what? And if that works, I don't know, guys, Captain America. Or I think it was vice versa. I think they made Cap first because they were like, holy shit, we need Cap.
Yeah.
If we were even imagining the Avengers, we're going to have to make a Cap movie. And because those work, they could piggyback Thor. So it's why Warner Brothers fumbled it so hard trying to chase the Avengers by racing to Justice League before anybody loved this Batman.
Yeah, I mean, like,
That's true.
even like at our base level, right? When we started the project, we have like 5 characters, right? All drawn out, done, assets finished, everything's good, generated art. And we're like, do we just release it as one collection and just drop it, right? And we're like, it doesn't feel right. We wanted to drop our initial character that we have and see the reception for that character and really build out that character and like give it that personality that we saw when we were creating it.
Yeah.
Compared to just like, hey, let's flood the market with like 5 random characters, and go from there, right? So yeah, we're like building the foundation, and then all of these will eventually, they have a play in the ecosystem that we're building, right? And in the end, whether it's an animated TV show or like a feature film or a game, or there's so many things that we have in mind, but it's like kind of this like one step at a time, like.
Yeah, and all that stuff can work in concert. It just needs to be intentionally built
Exactly
at that level, right?
Yeah.
And I'm witnessing a lot of people just racing to what they see as a gold rush opportunity. And it doesn't seem to me that's what it really is. Like it is. It is.
I mean, this is why
to be this early in any of this stuff, to be at a point where you could actually not just be a part of monetizing the success of it, but be a part of shaping what it will need to be to function correctly in the future. Right.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about yesterday, right? Like we're able to be at the forefront of shaping this industry into what we envision the industry being, rather than it being shaped by people that actually don't care about the industry as a whole.
That is what I mean, that's the case I've tried to make. Hey, what's your Wi-Fi? Or probably shouldn't announce that on the thing. Never mind. I'll just try and find it. I love that the whole philosophy of really building together, of using all this stuff to mean something, and using it to create new ideas. Getting everybody to be patient at the same level is really tough.
I think it's what we talked on yesterday too. Is the patience of Web3 and Web2 is completely different.
Yeah, the expectation is just unrealistic in the Web3 space currently, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we're in a market right now where somebody that might have come in and been like, hey, this is my chance to make so and so amount of money, is reconsidering that decision. You know, people that are in it for what it actually means to be in Web3 and in this industry are getting in it now for the right reasons, rather than this like gold rush opportunity that everyone's looking at.
You do see a lot of people though, like in the collectible, like different industries, right? Like you have these flippers that were like in a sneaker game, and they were in that like 3-4 years ago when that was crazy hot. And then like the companies, like whether it was Nike or Adidas, they changed the way that you were able to actually like get these sneakers, because like bots were like just getting all of them. And once they fixed that, those people left, they went to sports cards, and the sports cards were hot for like a year or two. And then now that kind of cooled off, they came, like, I find like a lot of them came to NFTs. And it's like these people, these flippers, they do chase like whatever industry that they know they can make a little bit of money in.
It's tough though, because if they're the loudest voice in the ecosystem, I think it really pushes other people out of it. I got these couple tunes. This guy's the guy. This guy's first on my list to do something with, even though I didn't put him in the Wi-Fi is low. Love this guy.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, he's a redhead. He's smoking. He's got the Bowie stripe. I was like, oh, yeah, hoodie and a hat. This guy.
Yeah, the one on the trailer was I was wearing a button down, right?
Yeah, he had
well,
glasses.
it's this guy. He's the guy in the jersey. This guy. Because I really wanted somebody that looked like he was on a bad date and didn't give a fuck about this date. And the date was like, this is the guy. How did we match? This guy.
Yeah.
I can.
This guy for sure shows up on the date and he's just like, cool. Cool. Really? What are you studying?
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it totally.
Yeah,
for sure.
And then this guy too. I got plans for this guy. This is the most exciting stuff, the anticipation, right?
I feel like we're on dial-up again.
Right. Oh, the zombie.
Yeah.
Love this guy.
Bader's connection to that.
I know, right? You know what's crazy? We didn't know. People always think that, like, you know, we were talking about you doing this whole White Horse thing before you were doing it. And
Nobody understands.
We were like a part of it, and like we didn't know until you showed it at like what was it?
At
VCon?
VCon.
That's
when we found out.
Yeah.
We're like, oh shit, that's
Yeah.
We had some holders there, and they were like sending us like images like in Discord on like their from their phone.
Hadn't we connected on Twitter, but not to know that I was
Exactly.
We talked before.
We'd already like connected.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we
Not
had
to know
no
about White Horse.
clue.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
It was
found
wild.
out the next
People were
morning.
like shooting us DMs. They're like, "Hey,
I don't know
have
how
you seen
long.
it?"
I love that. It was this very exciting thing where planning pays off. So the idea that we came up with the idea in January, and we're writing it in February, and by March we were shooting it. And that was what I said to my partner. I was like, the only way this happens is if we just do it. I said, we just fucking do it. I said, if I call my agent right now, it'll be November before we're even sitting down with people to talk about what this could be. And I said, we could have a proof of concept that I can show at fucking VCon in May. That's the moment. And so we just worked towards that moment. And the only thing that we didn't anticipate was, me getting robbed. Nobody thought.
Right.
But it also created this very funny pop culture story. So it's only like 1 million people that are into crypto that know about NFT. And amongst all of us, the provenance of this asset is now so much more creative than it was even when it got stolen. The idea of it being held prisoner or kidnapped or like any version of that. Because that was when I called the guy who bought it, I was like, man, I think there's a storyline here. Like,
there's a whole show around that.
Well, Fred's the bartender. So it makes a lot of sense that people are going to catch feelings for him that he's not intending. And he's always got to like send somebody home at night and be like, I think you had too much. And so the guy and I started talking about, because he has a punk. I was like, man, we can make your punk just like really obsessive with Fred. We can start it early in the season where she's distraught and having a terrible day, and Fred like talks her through it, and she's like, hey, thanks. And like, to see that moment. And then she just keeps showing up, and we wouldn't even have her featured. Like, you just sort of see her in the back of episodes just like watching Fred be like, can I get another Coke? And he's like, oh, sure. And then eventually have an episode where she like end of the night locking up, and she's so drunk that he's like, are you all right? Do you need a ride? And she's like, and he's like, oh, I'm going to make sure you get there. And so like helps her up, and then she like shuts the door stone cold sober. And he's like, what the fuck? I just thought that'd be really funny. But just that you take the story that is happening in real time and fold it into the creative in a way that makes people feel a part of it. Like they're witnessing something even below the surface. I love that kind of storytelling.
I love it. Well, I know we want to get you out of here by 12, so we got wrap it up, and just probably just a quick outro, and then
we can do that. Honestly, it was a really great conversation.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for taking the
time. I'm going to highlight your tattoo that says "Love yourself first," which is the root of any great journey.
Exactly.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming, joining us.
Driving all the way down here.
Yes.
Giving us.
Well, I love the project, guys, and I like the way you're doing it. So I like to be supportive. I really believe in what's happening here, but I also believe that there's a way to do it right and a way to do it wrong. So
yeah,
I'm trying to. My whole career has just been allies and avoiders.
Yeah.
Right? Because anybody that's not an ally, you're like, oh, I don't need to hang out with that guy. Yeah. I don't need to collaborate with that guy. I'm just going to avoid that guy.
Well, we appreciate you coming, giving us the time. I'm sure you're super busy, and it says a lot because the podcast is just starting, right? And for you to take time to be a part of it at this, level, is we're very thankful for that. And you provide us so much insight. I'm sure the tunes that have been listening are probably just as dumbfounded as us, right? Just like what's next? Like, how do we?
Does this get curated? Does this? It's the kind of thing people can watch after the fact.
Yeah,
you
100%.
Yeah, of course.
Well, congrats to everybody that's early. Good luck staying patient and not going broke along the way.
Yep.
There it is. I love that.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Seth.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Right on.